Welcome to this special edition of LOOPcast, where we cover all things faith, culture, and politics from a Catholic perspective. Today, we're discussing a new initiative for the month of June, which has been culturally appropriated by the LGBTQ plus divided by minus agenda as Pride Month. Well, now we are pushing back with Fidelity Month. And here to discuss this movement is Dr. Robert George. Dr. George holds Princeton's celebrated McCormick Professorship of Jurisprudence and is founder and director of the university's James Madison Program in American Ideals and Institutions. He has served America in our public institutions as well as chairman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom and on the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights and the U.S. President's Council on Bioethics. He has also been the U.S. member of UNESCO's World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology. He was a judicial fellow at the U.S. Supreme Court, where he received the Justice Tom C. Clark Award. He holds degrees from Swarthmore, Harvard University, Oxford University, in addition to 22 honorary doctorates. And I won't list all of those institutions now, but that must have been fun to get 22 honorary doctorates. He is a recipient of numerous medals, including the U.S. Presidential Citizens Medal and the Honorific Medal for the Defense of Human Rights of the Republic of Poland. Shout out to our Polish listeners. Dr. George, a true hero and patriot, welcome to the show.
Oh, Erika, it's a great pleasure to be on the show. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to discuss your recent declaration. You have declared June is henceforth Fidelity Month, which is a welcome change. And everyone can check out the website, fidelitymonth.com, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, tell us a little bit about how we got here. Why do we need a new name for June? Why do we need Fidelity Month?
Well, we need Fidelity Month. It doesn't really matter much whether we celebrate it in June or July or August or September, or for that matter, in December or January. We need Fidelity Month because we need in our culture and in our nation to rededicate ourselves to the principles of fidelity to God, fidelity to spouses and families, and fidelity to our country and communities. All the polling data, Erika, all of it, most recently the poll released by the Wall Street Journal, but plenty before that, all the polling data show that there has been a precipitous decline in people's understanding of the values of religion, of family, of country, of community. The very values that were historically our sources of unity and strength in this pluralistic Republican democracy we call the United States of America. After all, it's important to understand, Erika, we as a nation are unlike other nations in the world. We're unlike the nations of old Europe, for example, from which many, not all, but many of our ancestors came. And we're unlike the nations of the East, from which other Americans' ancestors came. We're unlike them in that we're not a nation whose unity and strength is built on blood and soil or throne and altar, a common ethnic heritage, a common cultural history, a common religion. We come from many different ethnicities, many different cultures, many different faiths are represented among us. So if our strength and our unity is not based on those values, what can they be based on? Well, they're based on certain principles that we share or historically have shared. Some of those are captured in the founding documents of the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence, with its profound truth that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're truths that are also articulated in our Constitution. But beyond that, look at our national motto, "In God We Trust." Beyond those principles of the Declaration and the Constitution are certain other core principles that we share despite all our other differences: ethnicity, religion, culture, history. Faith in God is one of those. In God we trust. The belief in the importance of family. This historically has been a belief that's been shared by people whose ethnicity is German or Italian or Japanese or Korean. Doesn't matter where your ancestors came from. We Americans have always believed in the importance of family. And by family, we've historically meant the real thing, the marriage-based family.
Mm-hmm. Marriage understood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, marriage understood as historically marriage has been understood, the conjugal union of husband and wife bearing fruit in children. And we don't understand the family narrowly because we also understand the importance of grandma and grandpa, and sometimes great-grandma and great-grandpa. We understand the notion of the extended family. But we understand the importance of marriage, and we understand the importance of fidelity in marriage. And we understand the importance of family and fidelity to family. We understand parents' obligations to their children. We understand, as parents age, children's obligations to their parents. I'm right now myself helping to take care of my elderly parents who are now quite frail. My dad's 97, wonderful World War II, last generation, a great hero, my personal hero. And my mom is 90. And most people have historically understood this. Certainly we in the United States, coming from our different cultures, have understood the principles of parents' obligation to children, children's obligation to parents. And then we've also historically found our unity and strength in a common patriotism. Patriotism is not chauvinism. It's not beating our chest and saying, we Americans, we're the greatest people in the history of the universe. No, it's not that kind of stuff. It's belief in our duties to a country that has done so much for us. After all, there's a reason why our ancestors came here. Some, of course, were brought in chains in slavery, a horrible part of our history. But others, my own ancestors, yours, I'm sure, came here because there were great opportunities here. There were great freedoms here that perhaps they couldn't enjoy so much or didn't have available to them in the countries from which they came, whether they're Europe, Asia, any place in the world. Americans come from everywhere, and we've been blessed by our country, and we owe certain duties. And the same is true for our local communities, our smaller communities. We historically have had our strength in sharing a commitment, even though we're of different religions, different ethnicities, different families, sharing a community that brings us together. We're part of this local community, not just the United States of America, and not even just, the state of Pennsylvania, but this town. I did a lot of my growing up in a little town called Mount Morris in the mountains, right in the heart of the Appalachian mountains. My family would spend a lot of time there, all of our summers, and some time beyond that. And we all were from different heritages, and we had different ethnicities and so forth. But we were united as members of that community. Well, what happens when belief in the importance of fidelity to God, fidelity to marriage and in marriage, and fidelity to family, fidelity to country and community, what happens when those erode, which, again, all the polling data show they are eroding, they have eroded? Well, you lose your strength. You lose your unity. So by the authority vested in me by absolutely no one, Erika, I declared on my social media accounts that we would make June Fidelity Month, where we would rededicate ourselves to faith in God, to loyalty to our spouses and to our families, because marriage collapses when you lose that fidelity. And then loyalty, fidelity to our country and to our communities. Now, when I say fidelity and loyalty to our country, that doesn't mean that we approve of everything our country does. Our country's not perfect. It's a human institution. Of course, it's not perfect. Human beings are imperfect. Countries are made of human beings. So are local communities. So are churches. And human institutions have faults and failings because we're fallible and frail and fallen, and we got a lot of problems. So we can recognize where we have gone wrong historically, and we can criticize our government. We can criticize our country's policies. We can criticize where we've gone wrong today, the abandonment of the child in the womb. I'm not for that, but I nevertheless love my country. I love it in part because it's mine. Same reason I love my family, in part because it's mine. But I also love it because I consider it to be a great and good country. Not without failings, even important failings, profound failings, historically slavery, today, some other things, including the abandonment of the unborn child, but still, it's a great country. I was brought up by a dad, as I mentioned, was a great World War II hero. Um, I'm proud that my father fought for his country to defeat Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany. I'm
Hmm.
proud. I'm proud of our
As you
country.
should be. Right.
Yeah. And
It's a
so
great
I
legacy.
want that for future generations. I think we can restore our strength, Erica, if we rededicate ourselves to God, to marriage and family, to country and community. So that's what Fidelity Month is all about.
I love it. I love talking to you because I hear so much hope and not just like optimism, like, oh, everything's great, but just genuine hope that this is still true and real. So I guess my question would be, what would you say to people? I mean, I work in media, so I have my head in the gutter a lot. And so I'm looking at a nation where, like you said, all of these, our fidelity or even our cultural knowledge of where we come from and who we are has eroded so much. So, what would you say to Americans of good faith who hear what you're saying and they just think, how can I live out fidelity? There almost has to be a evangelistic aspect to it because so many people now, and especially young people, are ignorant of what are you even talking about fidelity to what. So, what are some ways that Americans of good faith who genuinely want to see a renewal of fidelity in our country, some actions they can take, advice you would give to them for how to do this?
Well, the first thing we need to do is to model fidelity. We need to be examples of fidelity. Far from giving up hope and abandoning fidelity, we should ourselves set the example for our own children, first of all, but then for our neighbors and our friends and for young people throughout the country. This, above all, I think, is what our young people need. Young people need heroes. They need models. I'm going to mention my father again. I was so blessed
Hey,
to
I'll
grow
mention my dad too, right up there.
great hero. Right? He was my model. I wanted to be like him. I wish I could be as more like him. But to the extent there's any good in me, it comes from my mom and dad because they were my heroes. And we need those heroes, those heroic people for as models for young people. And what they need to model is that fidelity to God. I mean, I grew up watching my father when he would go to bed on his knees at night, saying his prayers, acknowledging someone more powerful and important than him. You know, he might be the head of the household, but there was somebody he was answerable to. That message wasn't lost on me and my siblings, my four brothers. You know, we need that model. Models of fidelity in marriage. My goodness, Erica, do we need that today? We hear about all these movie stars and politicians and celebrities and everything with all, all their multiple marriages and relationships on the side and all this craziness. And this is kids are growing up and they talk about having your head in the gutter so much in the media. Well, yeah, the media is full of that. But what they need to see is husbands and wives who are genuinely, deeply faithful to each other and who genuinely take care of their children and bring up their children. Don't turn their children over to the devices to raise, playing video games. I'm not saying you can never allow your kid to play a video game. But if the video game is the babysitter, if the video game is doing the parenting, yeah, there's an unfaithfulness there. You're not being faithful to your kid. Fidelity to your children means that you got to be the mom or dad. You can't turn over the job to the devices. And we need people who are models of service to their country and service to their communities. Now, of course, when we think of service to the country, the first thing we think of quite naturally and rightly is our military men and women. We call them servicemen, right? Our military. But there are lots of ways to serve the country and to be a model of serving the country beyond that, being good citizens. There are lots of ways to be good citizens. Being active citizens. Our founding fathers anticipated a country, a republic, where the people governed themselves. Remember Lincoln in that Gettysburg Address when he talked about government of the people, by the people, and for the people?
Shall not
Well,
perish from the earth, right?
that's right. All government is government of the people, right? All good government is government for the people. Even the government of a benign despot, the benign ruler or king, is government for the people. A good king rules for the people. What's distinctive about America, as Lincoln put it, is that it's government by the people. So our founders expected us to be active and involved in government, at the school board meetings, involved in the political life of the community, the civic life of the community, standing up and speaking out when things go wrong, keeping things on course, offering yourself for public service in this way or that way. Could be standing for elective office, and it could be in other ways as well. And then being involved in informal ways, coaches, teachers, volunteer leaders for the scout troop or the this or the that. Um, there are lots and lots of opportunities for us to be involved in our country and our community's civic life, and we need to do that.
Right. And I'm just going to plug here Catholic Vote. We actually put out a guide on how to be a more active Catholic. So I'm going to drop that in the show notes along with the website fidelitymonth.com as an active way to do that. And yeah, I love the way that you're putting it too, because I think it's so easy for Catholics and every American to see what's going on, to read the Wall Street Journal poll and to more complain about it. But instead of complaining, don't just complain about it, actually be out there and do something. And like you said, something as simple as coaching Saturday morning soccer that, we can complain about, trans whatever in girls sports or fake men in girls sports. But what better way to head that off than to be there yourself leading a team and even just one team locally of kids to be a good model. So I like the proactive. Absolutely. So important. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the symbolism of the Fidelity Month's wreath, the logo, because I love it. Tell us about how you designed that.
Well, I didn't. It was
Okay.
designed by a man named John Barry, who is a permanent deacon in the Catholic Church, Deacon John Barry. And he is a professional graphic designer. He does wonderful work. I believe his firm is called Top Dog Productions. I'd want to
All right. I'll
design
put them in the show notes too.
them, yeah. But Deacon John came up with a beautiful symbol. It's a blue background, and then a gold myrtle wreath, two branches of myrtle, um, and then a star at the point where the two leaves join at the base to create the wreath. And what's most fundamental about it is that myrtle historically has been a symbol of fidelity. So that's why we chose the myrtle leaf. Now, a myrtle wreath, I'm sorry. Now, of course, myrtle is not naturally gold, so we've changed that. But of course, gold is the symbol of what? Nobility. And we ennoble ourselves by practicing the virtues. And here we're focused, of course, on the virtue of fidelity. It's a noble virtue, and we ennoble ourselves in practicing it. Deacon John is going to put on our website a detailed explanation of the symbolism in the logo. He'll explain why the color blue is the background. There's a significance to that as well. I was fascinated watching an expert in a field that's far from my own thinking this through and putting everything together to make everything in the logo reflect some particular meaning. So I'd invite folks to go to the website or to our Facebook page. There's a public Facebook page for Fidelity Month, and you'll find lots of great information there, including the information on the meaning of the symbols in the logo and the colors.
That's wonderful. And you're having a kickoff event, right, next week for
We
Fidelity
are.
Month?
Yep.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Thursday, June 1st, we're having a webinar. It'll be open to the public, and we're going to be launching Fidelity Month, and we're just going to be talking about the principles of fidelity, what they mean, how we practice them, how we should practice them. And I'm going to have some wonderful friends
It's
with
a
me.
great lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Jacqueline Rivers, who is one of the leaders of the Seymour Institute for Policy and Black Church Studies. Lila Rose, the wonderful pro-life activist, Lila
I'm a
Rose.
huge fan of her.
Celebration for her. Dr. Yuval Levin of the American Enterprise Institute, who is, I think, our country's most distinguished and insightful policy scholar, as I say, is at the American Enterprise Institute. We've got Wilfred McClay, Bill McClay, as
Yeah.
he's his friends, who's the author of the magnificent history of the American people called Land of Hope. Anna Samuel, my former student, who is the founder of the Cana-Box marriage movement. I forget who I've mentioned and who I haven't at this
That's
point.
all right. That's a great
But
lineup.
well, we've got more. I mean, it's I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
apologize to anybody I failed to mention. But it's going to be it really will be a great lineup, and we're going to be talking about all the different sort of dimensions of Fidelity Month, the importance of fidelity to God, the importance of fidelity in marriage, the importance of family and community, all those things.
Wonderful. Well, I'd encourage everyone to check them out on Facebook, get more information at fidelitymonth.com. And Dr. George will be following the progress of your initiative closely this coming month. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Erika, and thanks for helping us get the message out about
Absolutely.
Fidelity Month. The key thing I want people to understand is this is a positive vision, Fidelity Month. This is not
Yeah.
against anybody. It's not pushing back against anything. It is a positive vision of the importance of fidelity to God, family, country, to renew our nation and rebuild our strength and our unity.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erika. Bye-bye now.